Honey, I love you so much. I can do anything for you.
Quit table tennis!
Hi, welcome back. Table tennis is an amazing sport. I will never quit this game. Today we talk about the table tennis equipment, how to cut the rubber like the pro. Cutting the rubber is an art, and we are the artists. So normally you can easily cut your new rubber with a regular scissor or a cutting lamp like this. But some players cannot cut it nicely with a regular scissor, and your racket looks so ugly like this. And also you need to be carefully while cutting the rubber, or you can damage the outer layer of the edge of your blade. Wow! Wow, so fast and nice. Amazing! What's that? It is an electric scissor with a very well designed blade. This tool can help you cut precisely and quickly through the fabric, leather, rubber, paper and more. So if you are the owner of a table tennis shop, or a club manager or table tennis coach, that you need to glue to cut many rubbers for your players, I would recommend you to buy this electric scissor. It will save you a lot of time and effort. And how about the price? The normal scissor is about $10, and there are many types of electric scissor that you can choose with the price from $20 to $130. So there are many types of electric scissor, from the simple one with $20 and the high-end scissor about $100. I have made some quick review that which type of scissor that you should buy. Just search on PingSunday cutting rubber on Google, or go to my blog PingSunday.com to read. Okay, hope it helps and enjoy playing table tennis. And don't forget to practice table tennis every day. See you!
I'm the boy.